All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. If you joined us before, welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome. Every month, we take a minute to stop and talk about all things renovation and design. And we have with us, as always, our favorite designer, Kate Troyer, a feng shui stylist. Thanks for joining us, Kate.
Mhm.
And my name is Victoria Dowling. I head up the renovation sales team here at Cross Country Mortgage. And my team and I focus on helping you find the best financing for your renovation project. So whether you're a buyer out there looking right now and rates are on the rise and there's limited inventory, maybe now you're looking at homes that are a little less expensive than you did previously. Renovation financing is a great way to get the money to make that house what you want it to be, all in one 30-year fixed mortgage, still at a low down payment. And if you own your home and you're thinking about renovations, a renovation loan is a great option too. We can lend against the future value of your property. So you may have been told no, you don't have enough equity before, but with renovation financing, we have a lot more flexibility, and we'd love to take a second look at that scenario for you. So in the past, we've covered topics like how to feng shui your home office, the top renovations to get the most bang for your buck out of an investment rehab. We've talked about outdoor renovations. We've got a ton of topics. If you guys want to binge our series, the link will be below that you can click and go check out all of our lifestyle episodes. Right now, we've been doing a little mini series where we're focusing on transitions. Last week, we talked about life transitions and how that can impact your home. And today, we're going to talk about the transition of seasons and how the different things that you need to do to get ready, especially as we're going from summer into fall and winter. So without further ado, let's get into it. And our first topic is getting cozy. And so we wanted to talk about a few different things in this category. The one I'm most excited to talk about, Kate, is the fireplace, because I know, that's always a great way to add investment back to your house. So for example, a new fireplace is going to add a 90% return on investment. Nationally, it costs anywhere from $2,500 to $10,000, depending on the type of fireplace that you're putting in. Kate, tell us about fireplace trends. Is there one you see being put in more than another, like gas or electric?
I feel like, I feel like gas and electric over like a true wood burning fireplace is what we see a lot more of now. I feel like there aren't many people that are adding fireplaces that are going with the wood burning, and that's just because like it's messy and it makes your house smell. It's great when we have that fire smell outside, but I know that it's not always nice when it sticks with our entire home and our furniture. So if you do though have a wood burning fireplace, just one thing that came to mind for me was like making sure you have a really good place to like store wood, store all of your fireplace utensils that's like safe and out of the way. And isn't going to cause any harm to anyone, and hopefully is the easiest you can to kind of keep clean and tidy. So as far as styles, I do think it's interesting. I feel like I'm seeing some of this like stacked stone come back. Whereas it went away for quite a while, but now I'm starting to see it a little bit more here and there. And I am seeing more of like the natural colored stone over like the whites and the grays and that type of thing. We're kind of seeing that all over with everything, right? Warmer, more neutral tones are coming in, more organic feeling materials over, the grays and the white stone and wood and all of that good stuff. But yeah, I think we're seeing some of this. Also, some more kind of like modern fireplace build outs. And I'm not exactly sure how to explain it, but just like cleaner. Maybe like less intricate woodworking and more, fireplaces that are going all the way up to the ceiling, but it's kind of more clean, maybe even like Spanish style kind of vibe there. So we're definitely seeing a lot of that. from a feng shui perspective, the fireplace a long time ago was really the heart and hearth of your home. It wasn't only where you sat to keep warm, but it also might have been where you got your light at night and also how you cooked meals. So this was like a big deal a long time ago. For that fireplace area was a place for gathering. So having a fireplace in your living room, den, somewhere that you really want to have people gather is a really great place. I also think they're really great for a master bedroom as well, just because, it kind of sets the mood and sparks that little flame in the bedroom. And so I think it's great there. One thing that you can be mindful about with fireplaces from a feng shui perspective is that they heavily represent the fire element because you create fires in them. And so a way that we can fire is all about a lot of action, right? It's very energetic. So if we don't want a ton of action and things going on, we can kind of calm it down a little bit with the water element, which may look like a mirror near it. It could look like black furniture, curtains, and even your TV being above it, because when it's off, it's this big black thing above your fireplace. So that's a nice way to just kind of balance that element out a little bit.
Oh, that's super interesting. I know you don't see as many fireplaces going into the new builds, but it is still something people are looking for when they're buying houses.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of leads us into furnaces. And so I did a little research and I was surprised to find that upgrading your furnace can save you up to 32% in your heating bills. So yeah, so this isn't one that maybe is adding a ton of value to your house, but for a home that you're living in or plan to live in, this is a good investment in the future of that house. And not only how warm and cozy you guys are going to be in there, but also your bills and what your bills are going to be on a month-to-month basis. And then of course there, are options out there like central air, the heat pump, maybe you have radiators. We're in a really old home, we've got radiators. What are you seeing, Kate, from a design perspective and also from feng shui when it comes to the furnace and the heating?
I don't know if I can say much from a design perspective. I think that people are starting to be a little bit more mindful of where they're placing them within their basements, because they want to make it optimal for finishing the basement. And typically when we weren't finishing basements or people weren't being mindful of that, the furnace was usually getting plopped right down in the middle of your basement or the middle of a space.
Yep.
So I feel like what I do see is people being much more mindful about where that heating unit is going, so that if you do decide to finish your basement or something like that, I know we don't all have them in our basements. But just seeing people be a little bit more mindful of that. The feng shui aspect of this, I thought was kind of interesting. And I actually did a little reading and contemplation on this because I'm like, ooh, how am I, it's obviously all related, but how am I going to tie this in? So again, when we're looking at your furnace, it is a big fire element. And so a couple things that I uncovered was like again, kind of talking about placement of it. And there were kind of like some best places and worst places according to, feng shui wise. And so the one episode that we did that we, took a floor plan and basically looked at the home energy map on your home. That's kind of what I'm talking about here. So a couple great places for it in your main level on the floor or in the basement would be like that back middle section and the back right section. Those are the one is your fame and reputation. It is heavy fire element. So think about that kind of like igniting that area for you. Same thing with the right corner is that's going to be your love and relationship. And so you're kind of like lighting a fire to that. And then a couple like not so great places might be the back left corner, which is your abundance area. And that's related to the wood element. And what does fire do to wood? It burns it up and gets rid of it. And then also having it in the very center, which is your center, you could feel a little burnt out physically, mentally. And if that is the case, if it's located in one of those two, like not so optimal areas, you could do something simple, even if your space isn't finished, something simple like hanging up a picture of a poster of, a water scene, the ocean, something like that, just to bring in that water element to kind of balance that out. So I thought that was kind of interesting because I'm like, oh, I haven't thought about the furnace from a feng shui perspective other than, setting a reminder on my calendar to make sure that we're changing the filter and everything like that, because we want to keep up on those normal maintenance items. But I thought it was interesting how it kind of, played into the floor plan of your home.
That is super interesting. I wouldn't have thought of
Mhm.
any of those things, but when you say it, it makes so much sense.
I know.
And now is definitely the time, like Kate was saying, to check your filter, come out, have somebody service it. You don't want to be calling them in November or, even October when everyone else is. So now is a great
Mhm.
time to call for that. And just know, if you're a buyer and you're out there shopping right now as well, this is absolutely a renovation that you can include in your loan. Everything we're going to talk about today is. So maybe you see a house with an old heating system and you're thinking to yourself, geez, I have just enough money for my down payment and my closing costs. I'm not going to be able to afford a new furnace in a few years. Well, we've got financing where you could get that all upgraded right now. So something to think about while you're out there looking. And if you're living in a house with an old furnace, we can also do that with a renovation refinance. And I think our last topic in getting cozy is insulation, also super important. So
Mhm.
from a renovation perspective, to have your home re-insulated or new insulation blown in can cost anywhere from 1,400 to 6,500 on average, depending on what materials you're using and what square footage you're covering. It's a great investment in your home for your own quality of life. And again, this is going to reduce your heating and your cooling bills as well. Um, Technically, insulation has a lifespan of 80 to 100 years, but after 15 to 20 years, the batting can start to fall off. So it's not a bad idea to have it checked out, especially if you've been noticing some cool spots on the walls as you're going around. Definitely something to check out. And so many local towns and cities have programs where you can upgrade and do energy improvements in your house. And they have either grants or subsidized loans to give you. So this is something you could definitely do as part of your renovation loan if you wanted to, but it's never a bad idea to call and see what kind of funds there might be available right from your city or town as well. And they often have energy and auditors who will come out and take a look at your insulation. So, Kate, I know you did research on this topic too. How can we relate our insulation on the home to the feng shui world?
So I thought I actually kind of I just did a little reading on insulation and referenced a couple of things that I had written down. And then I just kind of thought about it for a little bit. And to me, my personal assessment of the insulation and how it's kind of relating to the wellness of your home is, if your home is kind of your vessel to contain the energy and things that you love and care about, when we aren't paying attention to bad insulation or poor insulation, we're allowing resources to leak out of our home. And whether that's knowing or unknowing, if we haven't checked or ever thought about it, it's probably something that we are allowing to leak. And that to me very much symbolizes kind of like, how are we taking care of and securing the opportunities, resources, money, things that are coming in our lives? Are we securing it and making sure that it has a good place to stay until it becomes or does something else, or are we just kind of haphazardly allowing it to leak from our bank accounts or leak from our relationships. And so that's kind of how I paired these two things together. And I just thought, it was kind of an interesting thing to think about. And I think there are probably a lot of little things in our home that we're kind of like, we put it off and put it off. And how many things like that are in our lives? Like, think about all of the subscriptions you've signed up for that you haven't used in 6 or 8 months, but you're still allowing that money to come out of your account. That's kind of the way I looked at it. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting take on it, because there's so many times when we're talking about letting something escape unwanted or making room for something. And it makes so much
Mhm.
sense that the insulation is just an extension of that and needing to,
Yeah.
yeah, keep everything secure. All right, let's see. What do we have for our next topic? Buttoning up, protecting against the winter outside and in. I love this one. And I think the first thing we can talk about would be the windows. Windows are great. Again, another category where this investment is going to help you in the long term. This investment is going to help you with your heating and your cooling bills, and the curb appeal of your house. So it's a really great one. It's got a 70% return on investment and average. Um, and it's just one of those things, again, that's going to help keep all of that energy inside your house, like Kate was just saying. Kate, what are you seeing for trends, or from a feng shui perspective, how do the windows fit in with the home?
So in feng shui, your windows are seen as like the eyes of your home, right? That's how you're able to see out, how you're able to see in. So they're seen as a symbolism of clarity. So if you have kind of like busted up, broken windows, or ones that just aren't looking so hot when you look outside, you could look to see like, how is the clarity in your life, and you may find some symbolism there for yourself. But also going back to like what we were talking about with insulation, this is a place where energy, can and does escape. So what are you allowing that to happen? Or are you, taking the steps that you need to secure what's in your home? And I think something that I could have mentioned when we first started talking was that, if you're looking at your home as this thing that is made up of energy, just like you and me, then it deserves to be taken care of the way that we would take care of our bodies. And so that's kind of like what we're talking about here. What are those things that we know we need to do before winter that we always want to put off, and why should we do them? It's not that it just has an effect on your personal home, but it can have an effect on you personally. So just taking that, that extra time to button these things up is really important.
Absolutely. I feel like I know the trend was black windows for a
Black.
while.
I'm still
Black on
seeing
the
that.
outside. What do you
I'm
think?
still seeing that quite a bit. With one of the semi-custom builders I work with here in Cleveland, we're still doing a lot of black windows. Um, More modern builds, so I'm definitely seeing it stay there. But the single family homes, we've done a couple things where we're going with all white, or we're going with white on the exterior and black on the interior. Um,
Oh,
yeah, it's more expensive, and I think we only did it once because of that. Um, but it's interesting. To me, I would say go with what's going to look the most classic with your home style, right? Windows aren't something that we want to think about changing because we no longer like the color.
right.
That's something. And so I feel like when black windows are trendy, everybody gets black windows, and I love them. I think they're beautiful, but I think, keeping in mind the exterior of your home, and
Hmm.
interior as well, and kind of your personal style. I would say if you like a lot of like color and things like that, black windows might not be for you. But if you like more and trend toward more of a neutral kind of base, then it might look great. I think it just
Mhm.
depends.
Yeah, windows are one of those fixtures that it's not like you can change it out next year. You've got to kind of
Mhm.
know what you
Yeah,
want and
you have
what's
to
going to look good
commit.
on your house.
I've been seeing
Yeah,
a
that's a
lot of
strong
like the
commitment.
gridded windows as well. That's
Hmm.
been extremely popular.
Hmm.
And you see like on social media all the time people that are like, "Oh, I'm not spending the money to get new windows." They're literally like gridding
Putting the
like
grids in.
electrical tape. Yeah. And I mean, it a video, it looks great, but I don't know how I would feel about that being up close and personal.
Yeah, creative solutions these days.
Mhm.
If you do want to get new windows, one other thing I wanted to mention is just that, we are still seeing a lot of supply chain delays. So even if this is a project that you're thinking, maybe I want to do this in the spring, now is still the time to call because those windows
Yes.
are taking like 3 to 6 months to come in. Again, another renovation that you can totally include in your renovation loan. But just know there's a long lead time on windows right now. And then, of course, you can do maintenance things to make your windows work for you now, especially if they're wood windows. You can always have someone come out to patch them, putty them, paint them. The last thing you want if you have wood windows or wood siding is for any of that paint to be chipping and peeling as we go into the winter, because now the water is going to be able to get in and that wood is going to rot that much faster. So,
Mhm.
painting, patching, just that little bit of maintenance. If you're not getting new windows, do that at least so that you can preserve that wood for another year. All right, now also in this category, what do we have next? Gutters. I feel like we're always talking about gutters.
I know.
Um, they are so important though, and this is another item that's really all about protecting the investment in your home. Putting on gutters, fixing gutters, it's not a really expensive thing that you're going to do to your property, but it's going to save you down the line from an expensive fix to your property. If you don't fix your gutters, you can end up with issues like ice dams, rotted siding, rotted wood around your window trim, foundation cracks, foundation issues, water in your basement. Like those are all expensive things. So having your gutters checked out and taken care of now, especially before we're going into the winter, is always going to be something that you should do. Some things that you could look for if you're trying to figure out if your gutters are in need of repair would be things like if you notice that there are clogs, if there's any standing water, if any spots are missing or sagging, that's going to be an issue. And again, taking that care of now is just going to save you money down the line. There's not a huge return on investment on gutters. I think it's 47%, 45%, somewhere around there, but it's also not a huge cost to get into either. So, especially to the returns, like lots of people forget about the returns. This
Mhm.
is a common renovation we see thrown in on new purchases because it is one of those things that, okay, we're getting some major mechanical items taken care of. Let's get the gutters taken care of too. We want to know that this part of our home is safe and secure and ready to go. Um, Kate, tell us about the feng shui perspective. I know you looked a lot at this, and I'm excited to hear about this.
Yeah, so I remember this was something we mildly touched on in the spring when we were talking about gutters, and it was the first time I really thought about it from a feng shui perspective. And I think that like we could very easily relate your gutter system on the exterior of your home to your internal, like your veins and arteries, right? Like it's where like the water has to travel around your home in a safe manner. And if we allow blockages in certain areas, we're left with much bigger issues, like you were just saying, foundation damage, rotting wood, like structural things that are really important. Just like if we allow, our arteries to get clogged and something happens, now we have a much bigger issue to deal with. So making sure that that's something that we are very much looking at going into winter, to again just secure that safety and well-being of our home and making sure that we're taking care of it. And like you said, Victoria, these are usually pretty simple fixes. And I think that's why we ignore them, because we think, oh, that'll be really easy. That'll be really easy. And then we just don't, take the action to make sure that it gets done. So I think this is like a really important one, especially when you think about how it could relate to your personal body and how that looks on the exterior of your home.
Yeah, it really is so important. And also, this is a great time to play it safe, right? There are some things that you can
Mhm.
DIY and there are some things that you can't. If
Yep.
your roof is too tall for you to get up there and look at those gutters, you can call a gutter company to come and do a regular maintenance and just clean them all out. It's
Mhm.
worth it, especially going into the winter. You don't want ice dams. You don't want more damage to the gutters over that period of
Mhm.
time. All right, and last in buttoning up, I think we have. Oh, well, before we get into tucking in, I did just want to touch on the roof really quickly, because it's also a really good time to take stock of your roof.
Yep.
And so things you want to take a look at would be signs of moss, sections that might be tipped up. Again, this is another one where catching something early is much better than waiting for there to be a giant water stain on your bedroom ceiling. Because if you can take care of it now, you're going to save yourself a lot of money in the long run. The costs for a new roof nationally are anywhere from 5,500 to 11,000, depending on what you're doing. And I know a lot of times now they're putting in extra vents in the roof, which is great for your attic area. On average, this has a return on investment of about 109%. So you really can't go wrong with fixing the roof. Uh, Kate, is there a feng shui aspect to the roof?
There is actually.
I'd love to hear it.
So your roof is going to represent like the head of your home. So we've talked about, your windows being the eyes, your gutters are like your arteries, and we're going to talk about the mouth of your home kind of when we get into our next topic. But this is kind of seen as like the head. It's the thing that like where everything comes together, and it's the thing that supports all the things underneath of it, right? It's like, I don't want to say it's the brain because it's not thinking, but it's that thing that's coming in to protect all the other things, you know, um, underneath it. It's providing structural support, it's providing safety. Um, and I did find it interesting. I looked into a little bit like roof shapes and things like that. And what's optimal for feng shui is like rounded roofs, having some
Oh,
curves and roundness, which I feel like over here is not very typical. We might see a little bit of architecture like that here and there. And the reason that's good is anything that's rounded just has this free energy flow around it, where when you have corners, those are seen as things that like cut into energy. However, when your roof has those angles and corners, it can actually be looked at as like the exterior like protection, like it's deflecting or reflecting, negative things happening around. So I just thought that I wanted to throw that in because I personally found that interesting. I hadn't thought much about just regular roofs and feng shui. So I thought that was kind of an interesting one as well.
that is really interesting. I'm thinking of like around here too. A lot of our homes in this area were built between 1850 and 1920. And I can't really think of any. Like some might have a little detail that's a little circular, right?
Hmm.
Like in the gables, but that's really interesting. I would have never thought of
Yeah,
that.
me either.
All right. Let's jump into our next category, which is tucking in, getting your entryway comfy. So, doing curb appeal updates is
Mm,
always going to bring you
always.
a good return on investment, right? Besides the fact that, like Kate always talks about, this is the energy you're presenting, which I love, right? Like, this is what you're presenting to the world. Um, it is going to attract buyers if you have a more tidied front yard, right? And if you've done curb appeal. So I know we had a couple categories. Let's start with the front door.
Hmm.
So I see a trend right now, Kate, where a lot of people are replacing kind of that builder grade front door. You know the one I mean, with like the window that had the gold kind of in it.
Mhm.
What are you seeing them replace it with? And then how does the front door tie to the feng shui world?
So I'm actually seeing, and this has been interesting. I'm seeing a lot of people that are opting for like glass front doors or
I
ones
love
that
that.
have a large window in it. And I think this is an interesting perspective because I kind of like that look. I like that we're allowing more light in our space. However, from a feng shui perspective, it's actually like me kind of frowned upon.
Really?
Yeah, because when you think about your front door, when you're able to see out, that means that anyone can see in. And the idea of that would be like if someone comes to the door, they can see you maybe even before you see them. And so it's like this kind of like a subconscious like safety thing for us. Like, ideally we want a nice solid door with a peephole so that we can see out and assess who's at our door before we just say, hey, come on in. So I think that's interesting, even though I personally like a glass front door. I
Yeah.
have to admit, from an aesthetic and a light situation, I don't really like it. Um, will say you could, have they make them now that even have like already installed shades and things like that that you can put in. So if you're putting a new door in, I would maybe look at an option like that or something that you could have it get a nice Roman shade. And then so that you're able to see out. If your shade's drawn, you can always get a nice little ring doorbell and then you can see them from wherever you're at. But yeah, I'm seeing that a
What
lot of glass doors.
what about
Um,
frosted glass, Kate? Would that solve all problems? Or you're just like, oh, design,
I just
no.
aesthetically don't like, me personally. This is a personal opinion. I don't like
Yeah.
frosted glass really. I think that that helps, right?
Yeah.
It's giving you the light and everything
Cover.
like that. Yeah. But just personally, I mean, I don't think frosted glass is like in or
Yeah.
anything like
Fair.
that, but that could be a compromise though. That could be a compromise though as well. So traditional feng shui people will be like, absolutely not. I
Yeah.
kind of think it's up to your personal preference and like, do you feel safe in your home in general? And this is the only area, what type of neighborhood do you live in? Like that type of thing. Because I also think about this, we didn't have technology that we do now, and things were different where people would just come to your door, like even like, oh, let's drop by so and so's house because we're driving by and it looks like they're home. Like I remember even that happening as like a kid and us doing that, like my family and people stopping at our house. People don't really do that. Like that's not a thing anymore because we have cell phones and you can be like, hey, are you home? And we're more
Yeah.
inclined to be like, oh, no, not today or whatever. And, our packages get dropped off by Amazon. We have ring doorbells. We can kind of see whoever's even approaching our home before maybe they even get to the front door. So I also think that lifestyle changes and the technology we have can kind of come in place of that a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah. I can see that. Anything else from a feng shui perspective with the front door besides the glass piece?
Yeah. So your front door is literally like one of the most important areas of your home because it's where new energy finds you and also enters your home. So whether you use your front door or not, normally you should use it, even if it's just to go check the mail or open the door to say, hey, like, I just want to let some fresh energy in my space. It's really important that you're using it and that you're making sure like it's a clear, clean space. And I also think too, with like us getting into shorter days, this is also a great time to mention like making sure, the light bulbs are changed and any exterior lighting and things like that we have so that we're able to light that path for guests. We're going to have more guests over. Holiday season is coming to where we are having people over. So we want to make sure that when they're walking up to our home, waiting for us to answer the door, like they're greeted pleasantly, right? Maybe we have a nice wreath on the door. We've got a fresh welcome mat. We've done a little decor. We've spruced it up. Now is a great time if your door is kind of peeling or any kind of like this one we have pictured, you could go in and just like throw some paint on there, and just make sure it's nice and clean and inviting for people and for energy to
Mhm.
come into your home.
It's so funny how those little details like that chipping paint just at the bottom of the entryway, how that just like it sets everything off, especially if you're listing
Mhm.
your home and
Yeah.
you're looking to just make small improvements. Look around for little things like that because a buyer walking in sees that as they're stepping through the doorway and they're looking for things like that throughout your house after that. So it's just
Hmm.
one of those things that's you probably already have that can of paint in the basement. Just grab it, touch it up, and now you've got a clean, crisp entryway instead.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, the entryway is so important, whether you're living there or looking to purchase. And just know if you do go buy a house and you're like, oh man, this house is in the right neighborhood, it's got enough bedrooms, this is where we want to be, but the outside of that house is just not what we were looking for. You can use a renovation loan to do that. I think we have a great before and after coming up soon where one of our homeowners used the renovation loan to take her ranch and turn it into a colonial pretty much. And she added like a
Ooh.
whole second story. Yeah. So you don't have to love what it looks like right now. You can make it custom to what you want it to be. So just keep that in mind too if you're out there looking. And I think we have a few other categories. I know porches was one of the things we were going to mention as well. Porches are one of those great things that's going to add to your quality of life. Like I know during the pandemic, porches, patios, back decks, this is probably one of the top things we saw getting included into people's loans as they're looking for ways to expand their space and their living space. So it's a great addition to your property. It's again going to fit in that curb appeal category. You're always adding value. How does the porch factor in, Kate, for a feng shui world?
Well, so I think it's, similar to your front door area, right? Like we want it to
Hmm.
be inviting. We don't want trash all over it. Like this is such a perfect example of like if I'm coming over to your house and I walk up on this porch, I'm going to be like, "Oh my god, so cute."
Yeah.
Right? Like these people obviously care for and care about their home. It just sets a good intention, right? For whoever's coming over or anything like that. So, whenever, and this also can create another, cozy intentional space for the fall. Like maybe you like to sit out here and have coffee. And so, you're adding kind of a temporary space to your home, for certain things, depending on the time of year.
Yeah, I know. I can picture some hot chocolate in those chairs for sure. Grab a
Hmm.
blanket. Hmm. And I think we had one more category moving on to the inside of the house. Let's see if we do. Or if not, we can always talk about it here. I think we were talking a little bit about guest rooms the last time we touched base. Now, this is just like a transition of seasons, and we're kind of also coming out of the pandemic. A lot of those rules have been lifted. And so, welcoming guests back into the house and setting up the guest room. Kate, do you want to tell us some of your tips to make a guest room an inviting space?
Yeah. So I think whether we have an actual guest room or we don't, thinking about whether we need to prepare for guests or not is important. So whether you have like a dedicated guest room or you might have guests, but you don't have a dedicated space, now is the time to say, okay, do we have an extra room, an office, a den, something like that, that when we have people over for the holidays, we can easily set up this space to be an inviting, cozy, comfy guest room. Even if that's like a higher end air mattress, right? Like you can still create a nice, cozy space, for guests. So figuring out one, do you need that space? And if you do, prepare for it now so that it's not one of those last minute things. Oh, Aunt Susie's coming to stay, and I haven't even thought about and you have all the crazy, holiday stuff going on, think about that now and just get prepared for it. Um, switch your linens out in this space. Make sure you have nice, warm, cozy linens for someone. And I always think it's nice too when you can provide your guests with a nice, relaxing space. It's always, I shouldn't say always, but oftentimes it's awkward to stay in somebody else's home, even if you're family, even if you're close, right? So being able to, one, create a space that feels good, that feels inviting, is really important. But also, maybe putting a cute little basket together for your guests with a couple bottles of water, a snack, an extra toothbrush, a couple towels, just like those everyday things that, when you stay at someone's home, you're like, oh, hey, where's this? Oh, can I grab a little bit of that? Or, oh man, I'm really thirsty, but I don't want to walk all the way through the house because other people might wake up or something like that. Just be mindful. And if, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but if you can just put like a little welcome basket together, I just always think that's nice. And especially around the holidays, it's just kind of that fun little extra touch that you can share with guests and just make them feel extra comfortable in your home.
I love that. And I think those are all of the categories we had today. Just to recap, guys, all of these renovations could be done in either a purchase renovation loan or a refinance renovation loan. So while you're out there looking at houses, keep these things in mind, right? You're not stuck with it the way it is, and you don't have to have $50,000 sitting in the bank. We're going to lend against the future value of the house, so we can help you get the home you're looking for out of the house that you found, right? Again, my contact info is up here. My name is Victoria Dowling. I head up the renovation sales team. We'd love to answer any questions you guys have about renovation, financing, and Kate, our favorite stylist, all of her contact info is there as well. So we'd love to take any questions that you guys might have.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies. As always, I love transitioning the season, so learned a lot for myself, for my own home. We have a couple of questions here for both sides. The first being, I have an old home and I love my old wooden windows, but they're not efficient. Are there options for more efficient windows without that harsh vinyl look?
So I'm sure, Kate, you have some stuff to say about this too, ish. Okay. I do live in an old home too, 1855. And we had wooden windows with the pulley weights up until 2 years ago. Anderson actually makes a really great replacement window. And they do make vinyl replacement windows that even pass the Historical Society requirements. So I think theirs is called Historic. I think that's what the line is called, but you could check there. They have some great options and they'll make them all different sizes. Like you can't see the window next to me, but that window is about 9 feet tall. And so, they made the custom sizes that we needed. I know in your old home, it's probably like mine. No two windows are the same, and they're going to need to measure each one for you. And they do specialize in that kind of old home renovation.
All right, actually kind of continuing that thought, how much of this does a renovation loan cover? Is it up to a certain cost or a number of windows?
Oh, that's a good question. So on a renovation loan, it's not like we would say we can only do 3 of your windows, right? We're not putting a limit on the number per se, or even what you can do. Renovation financing is really flexible. You can do everything from knocking down a house to rebuilding it. So what we would look at is, what do you owe on your first mortgage now? What's the future value of your house as if all this work's already been done, right? So we're going to send an appraiser out there with your bid from your contractor, and we're going to say, if all this work is done to the house, what will the value be in the future? And we're going to lend against that value. And so if we're talking about a refinance, on a conventional refinance, we can go up to 95% of the after improved value. And on a government renovation loan, a 203K, we can go up to 97.75% of 110% of the after improved value. In both programs, we've got so much flexibility because we know what you're using the money for, and we know it's going to add value to your house.
All right, thank you. All right, next question is about furnaces. My furnace is inside of my crawl space, but I'd like to move it to my larger, true open basement. Is this covered by a reno loan, and how do I start that process?
That is covered by a renovation loan for sure. You could move where your heating system is, upgrade it, do new ducting, whatever it is that you might be interested in doing along with that. So to get started with that, I would say you can email me directly. My contact info is right here. It's victoria.dowling@myccmortgage.com, and I'll connect you with a member of our team who can help you get started on that process.
All right, thank you. And the last question I see here, I believe, is for Miss Kate. Can you provide some more examples of furniture or decor in a home that relates to the elements, meaning like water, fire?
Good one.
Ooh. Okay, so I feel like this would be easiest if I just went through each one of the elements and gave you a few examples for each without going crazy and nerding out on this. So we're dealing with the 5 elements in feng shui, which is wood, water, earth, metal, and fire. So for example, fire element is going to be represented by colors of red, shapes that are triangles, pyramids, animal prints, animal artwork, decor, anything like that. Earth element is going to be represented by yellows, oranges, browns as far as color goes, and then any earth tones. Shapes like squares and rectangles. And then also things made with the earth element. So think like pottery, terracotta, earthenware, that type of thing. Metal element is going to be pastels and whites, and then all actual metals, whether that's like, you know, a bronze color or actual bronze or brass, round shapes, and then again, all metals. Water is the interesting one because you of course think it's going to be blue. It's not, it's blacks. So water is represented by black and really, really, really dark colors that like would almost be on the black spectrum. Water, you know, just in general. So that could be pictures of water. It could be like a water fountain, indoor or outdoor. And then kind of like irregular moving shapes and also mirrors. Wood element is wood, trees, plants, flowers. So the actual thing and prints, pictures of those things, actual wood, like wood flooring, wood paneling, and the colors of like blues and greens, think like turquoises, and anything like that. And am I missing one?
No, actually, I think we have all 5.
Was that all 5? I got all 5. Fire, earth, metal, water, wood. Yes. So those are some easy examples. If you are really interested and you want to dig in more, I actually have a guide on my website, which I need to change on here. I got my domain name without the dash, so now it's just fengshuikate.com. Yay, very exciting day. But if you just go to fengshuikate.com and you go to shop, there's a guides area. You can pick up like a whole 5 elements guide for like $5 if you want to like just, you know, start to dive in a little bit deeper and start to recognize those in your home.
All right. So that looks like that's the last of our questions. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining us again for fall maintenance.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.